Quest.
The Adventure Game Podcast.
I'm Ben.
I'm Jess. And we're joined today by a very special guest. I'm just going to make it happen, Ben. I'm not going to delay anything.
I have the introduction though.
Well,
so
no.
Do you want to?
No, I was going to throw to you for the introduction. I was going to throw to you.
I just said it. Did you memorize it?
Oh, yeah, I did. Well, I have a photographic memory. That's why I'm so good at adventure games.
All right. I will read the introduction and we'll bring him in. Harrison Pank is a game designer whose work has spanned from Telltale Games working on The Walking Dead and Tales from the Borderlands to Blizzard working on Diablo IV and working at Cyan working on the recent Myst and Riven remasters, and breaking news, recently hired at Shiny Shoe as the lead narrative designer. Harrison Pank, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, what a pleasure. We I'd like to thank our friend Francisco for connecting us.
Absolutely.
Of Grundislav and Rosewater.
Yeah.
So
he connects us with great guests and great sandwiches.
That's true.
What kind of sandwiches? Now I'm interested.
Now, he is our official sandwich correspondent. He'll occasionally record audio from the field testing new sandwiches out there.
And
you're
like
probably
crunching sounds, like a lot of like mastication sound effects. Does that tell me that at least it's all involved?
Usually it's after the fact. Usually we don't get a good No, I mean, we have a separate ASMR podcast for just audio of Francisco eating sandwiches. But that one's patrons only. But no, I mean, and you might be asking yourself, why does an adventure game podcast have a sandwich correspondent? And I guess the question would be, why don't more podcasts?
Absolutely good question. Excellent question. Yeah. Hard-hitting questions here.
Actually, I didn't ask this. Harrison, where in the country are you living?
I'm in California. I'm in Southern California. I've been all over the place. I've lived in Atlanta. I lived in San Francisco. I grew up in a country called Bermuda. My mom and dad are from Bermuda, so I actually grew up there till I was 15. Then I went to boarding school in Canada. Don't recommend that. And then I went to Savannah College of Art and Design for game design and animation and film and all sorts of stuff. And then sort of just bopped around trying to find work.
Well, my next question, and I guess so where you are now, what's the best sandwich?
What the best sandwich is here?
Yeah, in Southern, or you know what? Because you've been all over now, or at least all over the Northern Hemisphere.
That's true. But the place I miss the most is from San Rafael, California, up in Northern California. It was a place called Soul Food. And it was incredible. It had an amazing Cubano sandwich that I just haven't been able to replicate. And there's some incredibly good food down in Southern California, but this one, sandwich I've never been able to replicate. So if you're in San Rafael or in the San Francisco Bay Area, make a trip to Soul Food up in San Rafael and get yourself a Cubano sandwich.
We'll have to send Francisco there too, because that is one of because he has strong Cubano opinions.
As any right-minded person should.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just eat any Cubano and they're not all created equally. It is, I mean, I've had some pretty terrible ones. Jimmy John's does a Cubano, and I can't recommend it.
I wouldn't do that.
No way.
On classic French
That's a
bread.
little insulting, actually, that you would say that you ate a Jimmy John's Cubano, but I'm going to let it slide.
It was morbid curiosity.
I get it.
It's, how do you resist when you see such an ill-fated sandwich on a menu that can't be good? And then you start to think to yourself, well, surely they wouldn't be dumb enough to put it on their menu unless somehow they had cracked the code on this, and they had not. No,
more of like a scientific experiment than anything.
I think I was probably just helping them gather some sort of insidious market data. I mean, probably I was just being experimented on at some level.
You were definitely being A/B tested for sure.
Yeah. There's who was it? Was it you, Jess, that also got the Cubano from Subway? Is that correct?
Yes. Now, in all fairness,
so you're just getting the worst sandwich fast food. I'd sooner get a Jersey Mike Cubano.
This was a Cubano, again, from a Subway in San Juan, which is also in the Caribbean. So there's reason to believe that could potentially be a decent sandwich, right? I mean, but no, it turns out like if you just imagine what a Subway Cuban sandwich would be like, that's what it was. Yeah, who would have guessed? Who could have guessed?
Yeah, but now you know. You know, you did
Yeah.
you did your research. You know, you checked your
That's right.
hypothesis. So you know.
Yeah. Everyone out there on the internet's always saying it's like you got to go to San Juan and try one of the Cubanos from Subway. And you know, I did it, and you know, now I can contribute to that Reddit thread.
I mean,
Perfect.
I did have some spectacular food in San Juan when I went a couple years ago.
Absolutely.
Strangely enough, I didn't go to a single a Subway there. Which is very odd.
You didn't miss out, but
yeah, no. I mean, I bet like the Black Forest ham would have been delightful. Maybe a BMT. There are lots of great options, you know. But yeah, you don't want the Cuban sandwich. But no, this is definitely this is why we have a sandwich correspondent, because Ben and I can only try so many sandwiches ourselves.
I'm happy to be your Puerto Rican sort of sandwich, you know, not representative, but person who can sort of recommend you some good ones.
That's what we need. Yeah, like a proper like Majorca or something like that.
Yeah. You know, in Chicago, we have the McDonald's world headquarters are here. They do have the menu of the international, like McDonald's. Like they'll put in a couple like international McDonald's things, and I've friends who've gone and done it, and you want to know what they've said? It's fine.
Yeah. It's a rousing endorsement.
Yeah.
It's like you see, you're like, wow, the Japanese McDonald's has some really cool looking stuff, and it's like it's still McDonald's.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how they get you.
Anyway, speaking of being got,
that's it. This is the whole podcast is sandwiches now. Sorry if you had other questions about video games. That's all we're talking about now.
Harrison,
we can't do this.
You think we're joking? We had the voice of Guybrush Threepwood, Dominic Armato.
Oh, sure, I like Dominic. Yeah,
and we spoke with him because, as you may know, he's spent a lot of his career as a food critic and a food writer.
Yeah.
And so that's what we spoke to him about for 90 minutes.
Much to the consternation of our audience, I imagine, because I bet they had lots of questions about, say, I don't know, Monkey Island. But, you know, he's answered all those questions before. No one's ever done a good long-form adventure game-themed food podcast.
Absolutely true. Yeah.
So we won't do that to you. We can't, like, again, we have to think of our dear listeners, because that's who we do this for.
But I still have food questions. Just don't you dare.
Look, I'm trying to be serious here as a professional podcaster.
Try to get us back on the straight and narrow. You know, someone has to do it.
No, Ben, please proceed. I don't want to be the enemy of fun.
But bouncing all over North America as you have, what is a memorable sandwich that you've had other than that great Cubano?
Oh gosh, it's man. See, now you're putting me on the spot.
Well, I'll fill in time. I'll say one of the greatest, and I've probably said this in all of our sandwich talk all these years. My favorite sandwich of all time is from DeFonte's in Red Hook, New York City. It is a prosciutto with and I'm just working from memory here. It's been a long time. With fried eggplant, roasted red peppers, fresh mozzarella, and I think broccoli rabe, some green, and a lot of balsamic, and on a hard roll, and it is spectacular.
Amazing.
Chicago doesn't have as many, like, as someone from the Northeast. Chicago is not as strong a sandwich city, I feel, as New York or your northeastern cities, unfortunately. Has many good foods, but I feel perhaps it's a little, you know, where I was born pride. I feel that the sandwich game of Chicago just quite isn't there.
Right.
Same goes with bagels.
Oh yeah, I mean you can't expect bagel game to be on point.
Yeah,
that's
but
true.
I mean we do have many other good things, but like the bean.
You got the bean.
Yeah, you got the bean.
Yeah, we
The
got
big
the
reflective bean.
Yeah, it's like the spaceship from Flight of the Navigator.
I did think of that at least once while looking at that thing for sure.
Finally, someone gets that reference.
Love that Pee Wee Herman voice.
Yeah.
Look, okay, here's the thing you need to know about growing up on a small island. You only had so many videos you could rent from the video store, right? So like everything comes in on a container ship, and if you want a movie, you got to wait 6 weeks or more for it to show up in movie theaters because it's got to come in on a container ship. So comic books, good luck. You want to read Captain America #4 after reading #3? Not going to happen. So you just got to get what you get. And so it was just a sort of dog's breakfast of videos at the store. And so that was one of the ones that was for kids and was sort of fantasy-esque available at the time. So watched that a lot of times because that was what we had.
There we go. Yeah. See, the bean does look. That was like my brother taped it off of like TV once, and
that's the best way to see it.
Yeah.
Flight of the Navigator missing the first 15 minutes with commercials in it is how I remember that movie.
A nice super long play VHS, so the quality's not so hot. Yeah, that's what you're looking for.
Like tracking issues, especially
Absolutely.
because you're fast forwarding through the ads.
The tape just gets worn out super fast.
Yeah.
All I remember is the liquid metal steps that came down and like melted down and turned to steps. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world when I was 9.
Yeah. No.
Can the bean do that?
Yes, you can go into the bean and it will open, but only if you're pure of heart. So only that happens very rarely.
It doesn't have like the creepy like liquid metal controls, like where you just like put your hands forward and it like morphs over.
No. It's not a T2 situation.
Okay.
No, it is purely a Flight of the Navigator type situation going on there. Anyway,
as the signage indicates.
If you don't have a sandwich, that's fine because we can move on to.
So I'm not going to give you a satisfying answer, but I think the sandwich that really sticks in my mind the most is a sandwich I used to have when I was in Bermuda from a sandwich shop that doesn't really exist anymore. But I will say that the fish sandwich in Bermuda is like a local like delicacy. Like it is a thing that is known about Bermuda is the fish sandwich, and it's always like a white fish like cod, and it's always on raisin bread.
Raisin
and it has it's toasted and it has a coleslaw with mayonnaise and stuff, and it's a big sucker. It's a big tall sandwich, and so there's like huge like neighborhood arguments about who's got which shop has the best fish sandwich, but those are the requirements. It has to be on a raisin bread, and it has to be, I think, white fish, and it usually comes with coleslaw on it. So if you're ever weirdly in Bermuda, a 20-mile island off of the east of the American coast, look for a fish sandwich. See what you think.
Okay. All right. Well, Jess, speaking of fish sandwiches, what have you been playing?
It's a great question. When I think of fish sandwiches, I think of only one game. No, last week our episode focused on adventure game remakes, remasters, reboots, all these sorts of reimaginings of adventure game series. And it actually inspired me to go back and play a game we've talked a little bit about on the podcast before. I went back and played a little bit of Space Quest 1 VGA this week, inspired by our own podcast, because nothing inspires me like ourselves. And, I have to say, I'm on record as being a defender of the sometimes maligned remake of Space Quest 1. I found it really delightful, Ben. I have to say, the music, the animation it adds to the original, while I love the original 16-color AGI Sierra presentation, boy, it builds the drama of this idea that maybe the universe is at stake, that it's a big deal that the star generator is missing. You actually see reaction shots from Roger that help sell the drama, because otherwise Space Quest 1 can kind of feel like he's just drifting through the game aimlessly. I feel like the remake gives it a little bit more of a sense of urgency that I appreciate. But again, that is a controversial statement, and I will leave it at that. I don't want to. This has gotten me in trouble before with adventure game fans who have surprisingly strong opinions, and adventure game designers who have surprisingly strong opinions.
Adventure game designers who designed the game.
Yes. Yes, it's possible that one of the designers of Space Quest stopped speaking to me over my opinions about that remake.
Yikes.
So that happens. That happens occasionally. You know, that's just the world we live in. But Harrison, what have you been playing lately?
I kind of oscillate back and forth. I picked up Blueprints again, so I'm back on my Blueprints BS. I hit the final room on day 69. Nice.
Nice.
And then I was like, I'm good, and I put it down. And then I can't remember why. It just came to my mind unbidden at some point. I'm like, I should get back to that. But you get it's adventure games are tough to like go back to, right? Because you're like, what was I doing?
Yeah.
Like, what would like the momentum just dies, and that genre is really hard to like drop and pick back up again. And so I was trying to figure out like what at that point it's all self-propelled motivation, like I'm just deciding what I want to like poke at. And so I had to get back into it. And then on my first night, I solved like one of the like room puzzles, and I'm like, we're back, baby. So I've been just like hardlining that. I've probably put another 100 days into that game. I'm running out of stuff to solve. But it's not, usually I play these kinds of games with like friends or with my partner, but this one I just kind of did by myself, and my friends are like, I'll give you some hints. I'm like, no, I gotta like 100. At this point, it's a point of pride. Like I need to go all the way to the end without anything but just my brain. So that's where I'm at right now, is like deep back in the Blueprints hole.
Ooh.
Oh, wow. Ben, have you played Blueprints? I can't remember.
I have not played Blueprints.
I put in a few hours on it. I need to revisit it. I put in a few hours right at release, and then I got distracted by some other shiny object. But that sort of puzzle-forward adventure game usually is as much my jam as a narrative-focused one. But I was kind of digging it, and I was feeling smart when I occasionally figured something out. So there's something to be said for that experience.
Yeah.
But
it does have it's kind of again like the Mr. Riven games where like there is lore there that does paint a story, but you just kind of have to dig for it. It's not like scrolled out to you in like long journals or whatever. But there is definitely a story, and I think once you sort of like embrace the randomness, where you're like, well, I guess on this run I'm not going to get to do this thing I wanted to do, but there's so many threads to tug at. You're like, well, I can't go right, but maybe I can go left, and maybe you can kind of pull out a different thread. So, it is frustrating, and for an adventure game, you're like, I know what the game wants me to do. I just need to get RNG to get to the thing I need to get to, which can be frustrating. But I think at some point you just kind of let that go, and you just embrace the chaos, and it's been really fun.
Awesome. Well, Ben, what have you been playing?
So, I have I'm gonna add a request connected to this. Is I've been playing my current cell phone game when I'm commuting, when I'm riding the train back and forth. So initially, like, it was Balatro, and I played that, and I played that, and I played that, and I played that, and then I was like, okay, I can't play Balatro anymore. And then it was Slay the Spire, kind of hitting the same, feeling. So I played that, and I played that, and I played that, and I played that. And then Slay the Spire 2 came out, and I was like, all right, well, that's not on my phone, so... But I don't want to be playing both of these games at the same time. And so the most recent game that I've been kind of grinding on as I ride the train around is a game in both Balatro and Slay the Spire I already had on the computer and played extensively before they became phone games that I ended up playing even more. But the game I'm playing now is another game that I had already played, brought back, which is Loop Hero. Either of you ever play Loop Hero? I see Harrison nodding.
Yep.
I love Loop Hero, which is a game I don't even know quite how to describe. So I'm not even going to try to look it up. It's cool. It's got some. If I say auto battler, that kind of sounds like a Vampire Survivors type thing, but that's not what it is. But you are automatically resolving RPG type battles, you're equipping a little RPG hero that walks in a circle over and over and over and gets into fights with monsters that populate as you continue doing your laps. And it gets you more loot, and it gets you various cards that you can play to modify the terrain around the loop or the loop itself. And it's a lot of fun, and it's a great game. And like the previous two games, Slay the Spire and Balatro, it's a game that has a lot of like kind of stuff that like it takes a while, and there's a lot of stuff that you can kind of get as you play further and further. There's like a very kind of slow, grindy progression that makes it worth it. Now, I'm sure I could probably speed that up if I looked up some strategies on it, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to like a lot of the fun I have with Loop Hero is when I discover, I'm like, wait a minute, when I put these two things next to each other, it does this thing I didn't anticipate. That's really cool. But anyway, I am concerned that I am starting to near the end of my tenure with Loop Hero again. So if anyone has, something like a kind of a fun long play in the vein of these three that one could play on an Android, questpodcast@gmail.com. I think a little bit of the benefit of those three is that I had already played them. So I already was like, oh yeah, what a thrill. I get to play this on my phone.
Nice.
It's like, and I end up playing them more because those three games are all like kind of ideal portably. They're all ideal if you're sitting on a train and waiting to get somewhere. Jess, you ever play Loop Hero?
No, I haven't. But I will say, if any of our listeners have any suggestions for like a good game to play while you're driving a car, I have about a 45-minute commute, and I'm just looking for something to distract me. So if you, that's also questpodcast@gmail.com. Like, it can't be too distracting, but also I don't want it to be like boring. I want like something that's going to like keep some of my attention. So yeah, I mean, like I don't mind if it has tiny text I have to read or very elaborate button presses or something. I'm pretty coordinated and good at multitasking, so I don't think it'll be a problem.
Great.
I'm usually shaving on my way to work as well. Like one of those like very, very fancy people who's in such a hurry that they have to shave in the car. I drove by one of those the other day. I didn't think they really existed.
That actually exists?
Yeah, that's how busy some people are, Ben. I'm guessing he was probably some sort of like multi-millionaire CEO is the only explanation. Driving through my small town in West Virginia. It's probably a tech billionaire, if I had to take a guess.
Those guys don't shave themselves. They have someone to do that for them.
That's a good point. Yeah, there would have been someone in the back seat just reaching over.
Yeah.
With
and not driving
razor.
him. He didn't hire a driver. He wants to drive, but he wants someone else to shave him.
Maybe his driver does that. Like that's a side gig, and he drives while his driver's shaving him, and then they switch seats again.
Love that. Yeah, that makes sense.
I really can't believe that. I really can't believe that, Jess. I really can't believe that you saw someone
an electric razor. Does that help? Does that make it better? Like,
no.
It
would be worse if it was not an electric razor.
If he's lathered up.
Yeah, his full straight razor. Just
yeah. Oh no, there's construction ahead.
Yeah, right. Yeah, got to merge.
And then you have to clean that up.
He's got a hot towel in the side seat. It's fine. He's got a bowl with some hot towels in it. Fine. Luxurious.
Were you on the highway?
No, I wasn't. This was, I mean, I don't know which is better. Like, this is a lot of stop and go, like traffic lights, and we were in a school zone. So,
No, that's worse. Jess, that's
worse. He's going slowly because it's a school zone. Yes. It makes it so much safer.
Oh, at least
this all makes so much sense.
This is... Oh,
Ben, this is just how I know you're like in your elite city, lifestyle, but out here in the rest of America, this is how people live.
yeah. I'm in a coastal elite in
Yeah,
Yeah,
Chicago.
that's right.
you
Get me
lost those
back to
real
God's
Americans.
country.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, I guess that's what we've been playing.
So Harrison, what initially spawned us getting on the podcast is, I believe, like a month and a half ago or so, you posted on Blue Sky something that's like, I will talk to anyone about like my theory of game design, something like
That
that.
sounds right. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds like something I would say.
So what's your theory of game?
Guess what? Someone read that, that post. Bad news.
Can I swear on this podcast?
Yes.
It's fucking hard to make video games, dog.
What?
That's it. That's the whole thing. It's any video game ships is a miracle. That's the truth. That's God's own truth. Like, it's there everything is you relearn, you never learn lessons. You have to relearn lessons every time. Like, everything's a special case. Nothing, you can't really be like, oh well, we're just making another one of these, so let's just, like, every single time things are different. Even games that aren't like 9 out of 10 games, even if they're like 6 or 7 out of 10 games, like, the fact that those ship is a monumental achievement to actually get something out the door, whether it's one person or 1,000 people. Like, it's making games is tough. It's really tough, and it's a labor of love, and it's a cool job, and it's a great opportunity. I feel very lucky to get to do it, but because it's a creative thing, creating something is inherently self-destructive on some level. Like, you're taking a part of yourself and like putting it out into the world, whether you're writing a book or making a movie or whatever. And so, like, you have to kind of reckon with the fact that the thing you make right in front of you, by the time it goes out the door, it looks very different, and you gotta just have to accept that. Especially at larger studios where a lot of hands are going to touch it on the way out the door. So my theory of game design, as I remember it, is just that, like, the thing will change a lot as you make it. And there's no silver bullet. A lot of studios are like, we got the secret sauce. It's just, you get a lot of really smart people together, and you are a collaborative person. I much prefer working in groups of people. I know I'm a much better designer when I'm working with a group of people and getting my ideas beat up in the room and coming up with something that everybody's excited to own a piece of, than being like the lone wolf super genius who's just like goes away and like comes back with the perfect completed thing, and you just put it in the game and it perfectly fits. And so I think that it's a miracle every time they come out, which is not really a game theory, I know, but like, that's kind of where I'm at mentally after doing this for almost 2 decades. It's really a miracle every time.
One thing that was really interesting, and like, I've been like, and I both of us been looking forward to this conversation, is that all the other guests that we've had on the show are largely no, or entirely, like, indie designers working either by themselves or in a very, very small or limited team. And looking at, your resume, you've been working in, like, at a much different scale and in like a very different like place in the industry. And so I was like, oh, that's so fascinating. Like, I'm sure like the experiences are similar and also extremely different.
Yep. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
totally right. Like I said a moment ago, like, it doesn't matter, even if you're a single dev, like, even putting a thing out, it still changes, because ultimately you're making something for an audience. And sometimes you're like, I'm just making the thing I think is cool, which a lot of times is what people are making, and then it resonates with a lot of people. But like, the games are living things, and they're basically a dialogue between the creator and the audience. And you have to sort of decide, like, do I agree with their feedback, whether it's positive or negative? Do I, like, no, I'm actually trying to accomplish a thing, and I like it this way. I'm doing it. It's not a mistake. I'm doing this on purpose. And say, thank you for your feedback. I appreciate it. I'm glad to hear your perspective, but I disagree, and I'm going to continue doing things the way I want. So no game ever survives contact with the enemy, is what I like to say. And enemy in this case is kind of like any outside force, not necessarily an antagonistic force, but things change, and you have to be ready to flex and reconsider your assumptions and reconsider what you said. Oh, I'm trying to accomplish XYZ, but that's not coming through in the game. And one of the most important lessons that I've learned, small studio or big studio, is you're not going to get packaged in the box with the game to sit next to someone and be like, okay, what I was trying to do here is this, and this. Like whatever context the player gets from playing the game is entirely out of your hands. So you have to really think about, like, there's no one in their ear explaining, filling in the gaps, trying to explain the reasoning for why you did X, Y, Z. It only comes through the game, and they're going to interpret that however they want. And so it's really important to remember that stuff is going to change. So yeah, like you said, I've worked at big places, I've worked at really small places. Telltale started kind of small, and by the time I left, it was quite big. And I've seen that change over time, and like how the process has changed over time, and how we added more layers of scrutiny and checking in, and obviously that helped the quality bar increase over time, but it also caused things to go a little bit slower and cause more people to be in the room, more chefs in the kitchen. So there's no like perfect size. Like there are games that require lots of people, and there are games that don't require lots of people. But overall, the process has been very similar. Even if like I'm the lead narrative designer or whatever you want to call it, like I'm the story guy sometimes. Like that's kind of what I was at Cyan too. And so I'll be like, this is what I think the story should be. But at no point is it like, and that's the end of the conversation. That's the story. Like it interfaces with artists, it interfaces with the audio team, it interfaces with programmers. And to come in and just dump like a bunch of text on them, like a Bible, like here it is, here's the game, and then just like walk away. That's just not how any game works. Like you have to understand that you are a piece of a larger machine. And understand that every other department's success criteria are different from yours. The artists are going to always prioritize the art looking great. Audio teams are going to always prioritize their specific discipline. And it's something that's really important to remember, that it took me a while to get around to, is that like everyone has different success criteria, but as long as you can respect their success criteria, be like, look, the art team's criteria is their art needs to look good. So I need to understand when I change something, or I request something, or if I, build a new thing out of pieces and it kind of looks janky, that like, that is a failure to them, because that's their success criteria. So it's always a conversation with everybody. You have to understand that like, even if it's 4 guys in a garage, you are always interfacing together and working together to like push one vision forward. And keeping that vision in alignment is difficult, no matter if it's 4 guys in a room or 500 guys spread across the country. And so that's it's like the problems, like the granular details of the problems change, but the overall high reaching issues never really change.
And I saw when Jess mentioned like Space Quest earlier, when we were talking about what we've been playing, you nod. What adventure, like, so I assume that you were into the Cyan, like Myst and all of those early on, but what other adventure games were you playing when you were a kid?
That's a great question. I don't remember the first adventure. I was literally in preparation for this podcast, like, what was the first adventure game I played? And I feel like it was, I was a little too young for just text adventures. I remember playing Zork, but that wasn't like right when it came out. But I think like I went to like a cousin's house, and they had an old black and white like Mac, like the single Mac, the one piece Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they had a first person, almost like wizardry style, like go forward, investigate the room, like look at the dead body kind of adventure game where you would solve a murder or something. But I don't really remember the details. But it was black and white, hand drawn sort of graphics. Obviously, the Myst and Riven were the big ones for me. But before that, I played King's Quest 6.
Yeah.
And again, that came just packaged in. Like we bought a computer from like Gateway or something, and you get that big like manila folder of all the CDs of random sort of middleware. And in there, tucked in there, was a CD for King's Quest 6. And I remember just installing that and playing that for hundreds of hours probably. And I'd bring in, it's same sort of experience that I'm sure we all had as youngsters. We'd bring friends over, we'd try and solve puzzles together, you take notes. But this was sort of before the internet. Bermuda got the internet a bit late too, so I couldn't go online and like look stuff up. I had the same thing with Alone in the Dark. The other one, the big one, was Alone in the Dark. The first Alone in the Dark.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would just get stuck, and I couldn't solve it, and there was no internet to go to like look up solutions. So these games would last you months, or longer, or just you never finish them. And I have a very vivid memory of playing King's Quest 6 and realizing that there was a BBS bulletin board, so you could go online to get solutions. Now, keep in mind, I'm in a different country, right? And this is like a 1-900 number or something. And so my parents go to the grocery store or something, and I like sneak around and I go get the phone line and I unhook the phone line, I drag it into the computer room and I plug it into the compact and I log in and I know what I'm doing. I log in and I'm like racing time because I know that like if the call goes on too long, it's going to become extremely expensive. So I'm like speed reading the like welcome to the Sierra BBS. And I'm looking for like hints. 3 enter. Find the game. King's Quest 6 enter. Go to the place in the game. I'm trying to and I didn't think at that time to like print anything out. I just like would read it and write it on a piece of paper. Speed reading this stuff like the code for the door and then like log out and like disconnect the thing and put it all back before they would return. And just hope that the call was cheap enough that they would never like flag it. They'd never be like, what's this $20 phone call? Yeah. So I would just like try and keep the call length as low as possible because it was an international phone call to like a 900 number to like get one answer to one adventure game puzzle. Those are the tough times. Kids don't know.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there were several times, growing up a massive adventure game fan, especially a Sierra fan, like learning that the Sierra BBS existed, like immediately prompted me going to my parents and saying, it's like, look, I know in this house we have strict rules about long distance phone calls.
Yeah.
But if I could just dial into this for a few minutes, I think it might change my life. And they're like, absolutely not. And then when the Sierra Network launched, the Imagination Network later on, it was like, look, now this is like a fully graphical opportunity for me to play Red Baron against people all around the world. It's like, surely you must see the value in a single $20 phone call or something like that. Absolutely not.
No way.
So yeah, I knew those things were out there. I knew that some kids were enjoying them. But yeah,
I enjoyed the Sierra Network.
You were just too honest.
You're always bragging about it, Ben.
You were too honest. You should have just snuck it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be here today. You don't know my mother and her hatred of long distance telephone charges. I mean, it was really one of the most important principles she lived her life by, was not having a large long distance phone bill. That. We had family that lived like an hour away that we talked to every 6 years.
Well, was it necessarily the long distance phone call that like helped encourage that, or was that just a convenient excuse?
Oh, I mean, my parents were happy to encourage all of my bad gaming habits that didn't incur by the minute charges.
Oh, I meant the family members.
Oh no, yeah, they absolutely, that part was absolutely a good excuse. Yeah,
absolutely.
You don't know my mother, you certainly don't know my extended family. They're crazy. You wouldn't believe them. I've got a type 5 about them.
And a very loose 10.
That's right. Yeah. Can't recommend that show. Don't come to the second show.
Sloppy 10. Yeah, we love it. We love a sloppy
10. When
I think that's one of the sandwiches you can get at Subway, actually.
Yeah.
Sloppy 10? Give me some of that Sub Crunch. You don't have Sub Crunch now at Subway?
What the fuck is a Sub Crunch?
It's basically cornflakes you can get on your sub for a crunchiness. It's spelled, it's one word, SUBKRUNCH. So I guess it's trademarked because of the K. And it's also a comedy K.
It's essentially they just saw people add potato chips to sandwiches.
That's the thing. You can just do that.
Yeah, they have them sitting right there. They have bags of them. Yeah, but no, they're basically, it's like, fancy Subway cornflakes.
But they don't have the hotel mini boxes of cornflakes sitting there at the.
No.
Do those mini boxes? Does that still exist? I haven't seen it. The last time I was at a hotel.
They come in like tubs now. They're like in like plastic like buckets now.
Yeah, it's such a letdown. That's less fun. Like, I don't want to peel the top off of a little like yogurt container style of cereal. I want to rip open a miniature box with a smaller version of the art that is normally on the regular box.
This tiny little wax paper bag inside.
Yeah. Yes.
Get your 4 Fruit Loops out of there.
Yeah. It makes you feel so big and
I feel like a giant.
I say this as someone that's 6'2".
Gulliver's cereal.
Love it.
It's amazing.
So I feel like So so you said you were at Telltale when it was smaller.
Yeah.
Around what games were in development when you started there?
So I was just lucky enough to happen to be there when Walking Dead was just kicking off.
Okay.
So I actually got hired there because of, I believe, Myst fan sites and a bunch of Myst puzzles I made online, and I like walked like the design director through that stuff, and then I got the job, which is really cool. But at the time, they had the King's Quest license, and so as I said
Right.
earlier,
Oh
like
yeah.
heck yeah, let's go King's Quest. Like I'm excited. So that's what I was hoping to work on, and that's kind of what they told me. You'll probably be working on King's Quest. Um, so at the time, I think they had just finished Back to the Future. They were working on the Jurassic Park game, and
I love that game, by the
it's
way.
fun. Yeah, it's fun. It's very different.
Amazing death
It's
scenes.
definitely not an adventure game in the classical sense,
No.
but it's fun. It was Telltale kind of trying and branch out and try some different stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't think, honestly, I don't think The Walking Dead would have shipped in the format it had without like the Jurassic Park game as a stepping stone. So you know, it definitely gets credit for that. And so I showed up and I was like, can't wait to work on King's Quest. And they took me aside and they're like, so Walking Dead. And I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, okay. And then one day King's Quest for sure. And they're like, yeah, definitely for sure. And then we just quietly did nothing with that license and let it elapse. And then the other folks did the new King's Quest games, which was super fun.
Which is great. I would have loved to have seen Telltale's take on it.
Me too,
what a
man.
Fun project that would have been.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. All the stupid inventory items that if you don't collect in hour 1, you die in hour 20 and you don't know about it till the end. I would have made all that stuff for sure happen. But so yeah, I got there and I, you know, obviously Telltale was already doing very well at that point. You know, Sam and Max is very popular and all those games are doing very well. And I think I was definitely like they were under 100, I think, at that point. And then The Walking Dead really kind of blew up in a way nobody really expected. And we just started hiring and hiring and hiring. It kind of became a big like factory. And this is certainly not my story, so I don't want to tell it out of school. But the Telltale was never supposed to become a Telltale formula, like the Walking Dead style of game, like the timer ticking down and the silence. You could pick silence, and like the so and so will remember that. Like that was something that that the game, like the showrunners of that game, Jake Ryken and Sean Vanneman, pushed because that's how the comic book felt, right? Like it's tense. You don't always get to make the right decision. You got to make a snap judgment. Sometimes it gets people killed. It's just, you know, it's high tension. It's stakes is always moving. And if you say something shitty to someone, three chapters later in the comic book, they throw it back in your face. And like that was the whole point of it was evoking the comic book. It was never supposed to be like this is a new paradigm for every Telltale game. But you know, it's what happened with a lot of large studios where it was so successful and it worked so well with the game engine that we already had that didn't require a lot of new mechanics that we were like, let's just keep making games in this style. Which worked for a while, but eventually people started getting like, oh, it's just another Telltale game. Like, oh, this new one, it's just the Telltale formula again with this license. So I think that did kind of cause a little bit of fatigue after a while. Once the studio was much larger and we didn't have it became a lot harder to like kind of take risks, you know.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about this. You know, I think as someone who was following Telltale at the time as a player, you know, some of those later releases toward the end are, you know, really quite good games.
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
both the seasons of Batman's
great.
are fantastic, but you look back at the reviews and there are a lot of 6s and 7s flying around, and the reviews essentially were just all framed in terms of the fatigue of what becomes sort of the house style there. And it's a shame because I think there are a lot of games in those later years that didn't get the fair shake they deserve because that was the lens that the community began viewing them through. And it really does some of those later games dirty.
I agree with that. I do agree. I think if you go back and play Batman or Minecraft Story Mode or any of those games, they're like really, really clever use of the mechanics. They really did like actually evolve what those mechanics were used for. That if you kind of saw them without that baggage, you might see them in a new light for sure.
Yeah, I think watching you play Batman Season 2, Jess, I still think about like that was such a fun stream. That's such a fun and interesting game.
It's a fantastic. I mean, the idea. I mean, it's impressive to come up with anything new to do with Batman here in the Joker. Here in the 21st century, and they did some neat stuff. Yeah, I'm curious, and I think that actually ties into it. I've spoken to someone before that was at Telltale around those later years, and they had told me a little bit about what it was like wrangling IP. And I'm curious, with your background, on Walking Dead and Tales from the Borderlands, what was that experience like at Telltale?
It's a great question. So I IP games, especially for an outside studio, is such a dangerous thing because you're banking a lot on the IP being like popular and successful enough that people that wouldn't necessarily play a game might come over to play. Like, I'm a big fan of Game of Thrones. Does that translate to becoming a Game of Thrones game player? And you ride a lot rides on that. So and they come in with like expectations, right? So and same thing with Diablo, same with any game in a long running franchise where people will come in with expectations, and everyone's expectations are different. Like, what Batman means to me might be very different from what it means to you. How it should feel to be Batman is maybe feel different, right? So it was the first thing we would do. So I was the lead designer on Tales from the Borderlands for the first year, and then I kind of transitioned off and handed it off to the team that shipped it. So that I can't claim the quality. Like, my stuff is there underneath the foundation, but the fact that that's a fantastic season of game, I can't take much credit for it. So but I was there.
It is a fantastic season.
They did such an
game.
incredible job. The game they shipped way better than the one I would have shipped. I'll just say that. But a lot of the foundational work I was there for. So working with Gearbox was super fun. Like, we worked with the creatives and the writers and stuff over there, and they were just so stoked to just bounce ideas around. But the first thing we always do is, like, what does it feel like to, and this Borderlands is a bit easier because it's already a game property, so you can be like, what does it feel like to play Borderlands? So it was like, okay, here are the things that, like, if you had to squint and blurrily explain what Borderlands was to somebody, here, how would you do it mechanically? So it's like, okay, it's, the world is really dangerous. Nobody's a good person. Like, you're always stealing loot from your friends. Everyone's kind of a jerk to each other. There's lots of players all happening. It's like a multiplayer game, so there's a lot of kind of chaos happening. The world is, has a very specific style to it. It obviously has kind of like the meme-y, pop culture references and stuff. And so we try to, like, figure out, like, okay, for example, multiplayer. Well, Telltale's not going to make a multiplayer game. How can we get that feeling of multiplayer, like, backstabbingness into this game? And that's where I came up with two sides to every story, where you have Fiona and Reese, and they tell a story and they're kind of lying, and maybe they call each other out. And so, like, how can we sort of simulate what it feels like to play those games with a totally different set of mechanics? Which, you will do with some success and some less success. But I think that really thinking through, like, how do you feel? What are the emotions that are triggered when you're enjoying this property, and kind of why? And how can we trigger similar emotions to those, but with mechanics that we have, because we're not going to do shooting sequences, right? So how can we get you to feel like you're backstabbing your buddy without stealing loot from somebody?
Well, that's fantastic. I'd never thought about that. That puts it in such perspective, because Reese and Fiona are such fantastic characters and such a great part of that game, to sort of frame them as a way of capturing that multiplayer mode. And then I think also, makes me wonder, maybe you could comment on this. Like, I think of, and I'm blanking on the name right now, Reese's best friend, and Fiona's sister,
Sasha.
Yes. Give it that. I feel like almost that gets some of that multiplayer hanging out with your buds sort of vibe
Absolutely.
element of it too, in addition to the backstabbing. No, that's a great new way to think about that game, looking back, because I love Tales from the Borderlands. It's
Thank you.
Such a delightful game.
It's incredible. The team did an incredible job. I'm happy I got to be there for as long as I did and sort of set the foundation for success, but they just took it to another level. And I think that the struggle was always like, okay, we're not going to go to a vault, and we're not vault hunters. Like, vault hunters are super powerful. Like, they blow up scores of dudes, and we're not going to do that. So we need to make them just like average idiots with no powers. And the time they meet a vault hunter was like, they're like, oh my god, it's a vault. Oh, we're in big
Seems
trouble.
like a superhero.
They're like, but like, it's like meeting like Homelander. You're like, oh, we might just die right now. Like, it's so that was really important too. And like you said, having the NPCs that are like your kind of number twos there to sort of build relationships, because like, again, Telltale's about building relationships with people. So you want to have a cast of characters that's sort of recurring, that you can rely on and learn their kind of like quibbles, and like, oh, Vaughn's a little bit more like this and Sasha's a little bit more like that. Fun fact that Vaughn used to be way more like negative and scaredy catty all the time. And he was like, I don't know
Mhm.
about this, Reese. Oh, I'm a little scared about this. And we were just like, this guy's just telling me to quit the game. Like, we need someone who's like
Ah,
down to
Yeah.
clown. And so like we went back through and like all the stuff about like we need $1 million, and he like goes done. Is was just we need a guy who's like ready for the adventure, even if he's like, I think we should go X direction instead of Y direction. The first run of that character was supposed to be like the nerdy banker guy, and he's out of his depth and he's scared and he's clutching his briefcase, and he's like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. But anytime you play Reese, you were just like, I hate this guy. He's telling me to like effectively not engage with this content. So it's definitely a lesson that I learned, like writing NPCs and writing like support characters all the way through, even in Diablo. Like you've got to, they can feel scared, they can have their opinions, they can be like, I don't agree with this, but ultimately they kind of have to like buy into the adventure. Otherwise, you're like, this guy's just dragging me down, and I don't want to be around him, and that just drags the whole energy down, you know.
Yeah, I
because you end up
mean,
with a friendship there that's like one of the defining traits of the season. I feel like.
yeah, and like Tales from the Borderlands is so like kind of peppy and high energy, and so having someone that is like, oh, I don't want to do that all the
Yeah,
time.
you're like, well, I'm gonna. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
you can
thank
have
you.
you can have those. I mean, like the whole point was that he's a comedic relief character, right? But like
Right.
even so, and he's just constantly like just telling you to like he's pulling you back from doing the fun thing constantly. It's like a leash, like pulling you back from the fun thing. And you're like, this is Borderlands. I want to cause some chaos. And he's like, I'm scared. It just makes you feel guilty, and you're like, I guess I just quit the game to make him happy. So it just
You win.
it's like you've got to think about the sort of the momentum of the character, like pulling you forward or pulling you back, you know.
Especially, I think, in an adventure game that moves at a slower pace than, say, an action game. I mean, already, it's more deliberate than a lot of other genres. And if there's something, just sort of hinting to you, maybe this adventure isn't worth your time. That's not going to work out for the player.
Yeah.
I so you worked on Tales from the Borderlands, and you worked on The Walking Dead,
Mhm.
and Telltale, like, and those as we were kind of talking about, those propulsive Telltale like narrative games. And then later, most recently, you worked on the Cyan games, and like those, I have to assume that the game design for Myst and Riven are entirely different, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
Just slightly. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have dialogue options. They expect you to read like 17 pages of journals. Very
No one
different.
remembers anything.
That's true. Yeah. Designing. So for clarification, when I got to Cyan, Riven was very close to completion. I was lucky enough to playtest early Greybach, sort of like layouts and stuff, give feedback, and like help like problem solve. Like, hey, what if we kind of change this? Because the remake of Riven has a lot of new content, new puzzles, new areas, and it was actually a real joy to get to play Riven kind of from scratch again, which is not a thing you really get a lot. Even in remakes, it's just kind of like an up-res version of the game, and all the logic still works. You know where to go. You got to know what to do, which is kind of how the new Myst is. Which it looks gorgeous, but it's like if you know how to play Myst, you can just steam through that game. But Riven, they wanted to do something very different, and I think it was the right call. And they got they brought the band back together. They got Richard Van der Wen, who was the original production director or production person on that game, that kind of gave it its sort of distinct look, and they got him to help like design new puzzles, add new lore, all that stuff. So it was a really special experience to get to sort of not only play that from scratch from like a new experience and like get befuddled again, but to help them say, when I was playing this particular puzzle was really resonant and really important to me, and I think we should maybe push it this way or that way. But I certainly wouldn't say that I was like driving design on that game. When I was at Cyan, we were working on a new kind of like we were kind of like trying out some new stuff to work on, and ultimately we weren't able to get that going. But I was lucky enough to work on the Rime piece, the new age for Myst.
Yeah.
So that one I was pretty heavily involved from kind of the beginning to end in terms of design, and it was very, very different from a Walking Dead game, which is very dialogue heavy, and
Right.
Myst is very dialogue light. So.
What was there anything where you were like from like Telltale or even Diablo, like or Blizzard rather, like experience that kind of bled in to that?
It's a good question. I mean, there's sort of like the high level as you do your job for a long time, you just sort of sharpen your instincts, kind of uh, experience that kind of got brought in. I think that spending a lot of time in 3D spaces and kind of understanding how to draw the player's eye or to sort of uh, like level design spaces out, like the cyan like juice is how they design their spaces to turn a corner and this is beautiful grand reveal, or you go through like a tunnel and then now you're out in a big open area, you see a big gold dome, and like it's like they block lines of sight beautifully to sort of like give you a little glimpse of a thing, and then you don't see it again for a while, like hints something's coming. But really trying to make sure that like puzzle and narrative comes through very cleanly. The thing I learned from not from Walking Dead and also Diablo, which is a game that has story and has stuff going on, but most people are like just skip. I just need to know where to go to kill the demons. Thank you.
Yeah. Click.
Yeah, heartbreaking, but we know. And and into Cyan was that you need to spread your story around a lot of different vectors, and it has to sort of repeat itself a little bit. Where like it's that joke from The Good Place where like we got all 3 of your clues, and he's like, I put 10,000 clues out there. So you have to like spread. You got to spread it everywhere. And so in Diablo, you use every part of the buffalo to tell the story, and that's everything from the obvious stuff like quest name and quest dialogue with the NPC to the level area name. Like when you entering the bloody moors. To the monsters you choose to fight, like I'm choosing to fight ghosts here instead of demons, to the name of those things. They're called unrestful spirits. It helps every little piece just like sort of helps you kind of coalesce this. I'm not really paying attention because I'm watching Naruto on my second monitor right now, but I kind of generally know what's going on. And so you really have to like break the story into pieces and scatter it as finely across the space as you possibly can, so that each person can kind of pick up different parts of it and they can kind of assemble it in their mind into sort of a story. And there's a lot of people who love the story in Diablo and will go and like eat all of it. But a lot of people won't. You have to sort of cater to both audiences. And so working on Cyan games, obviously they're a slower pace, and the fan base and the people who play those games want a slower experience with journals to read and doors to open and nooks and crannies to sort of explore, and story to sort of passively go, oh, that's why this is like this, because he went around they kind of put it together because of the environmental storytelling. But even so, that lesson still was pretty built into my mind of like, okay, we want to tell the story about the brothers from Myst as teenagers before they become evil, just as kids, just as normal kids. And okay, there are ways to do that, and we have to break up that story into multiple places. We can't just have it be like, it's just in this one journal. If you skip the journal, you won't know any of that stuff. So that's at least, I don't know if we succeeded, but that's the goal, is like making sure that you can get what's going on from just kind of like scanning the room. So I would say that kind of was that through line of learnings of like, you can't rely on people to care as much as you do. Actually, that was the number one heartbreaking true rule of learning a video game. No one will ever care about your lore as much as you do, ever. They might care a lot, but obviously you care more. So you can't expect people to like energetically consume deep, dense world building where you're like, in the year 27 AD, King Drathomir fought the demon. Like they're just like, they check out immediately. Like I used to joke about pouring the cold water of a bucket of proper nouns over people's head immediately.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm not even emotionally invested yet. Now I got to like learn like history and stuff. And like they just check out. And so kind of knowing when and where to put those bits of story when people are like, okay, I'm ready. I kind of got my footing. I kind of understand the general bounds of the world. Now hit me with some story. Okay, that's enough story. Thank you. I want to go explore. And so kind of like making sure that you don't just load it up and kind of know exactly where to deploy it is something that you kind of learn over time.
You mentioned the journals in Rhyme, and that actually, so just before I ask this question, I'd like to call out. So in advance of speaking with you, reached out to a friend of the pod.
A pod friend.
Pod friend is better.
Pod person.
Pod person.
Pod person. Streamer, Bogus Meat Factory. Follow him on Twitch.
That's a
He's
great
playing
name.
Wing.
Incredible
It
name.
is a good name. And he's playing Wing Commander, and I watched him beat Wing Commander 1 last night. That was really cool.
Wow, nice.
I've never beaten Wing Commander 1.
Never gotten anywhere in Wing Commander.
But
like the first escort mission, I'm like, all right, I'm going to pack this one up. Back to the game.
enough of that.
Yeah.
But he is someone that is very much like a Myst fan, and so I brought this up, and I said that you worked on Rime, and so he had a bunch of he sent some questions about it, and this is one. And this was the one that specifically he said, you don't have to ask all these questions, but please ask this one. So
Got it.
So, quote, journals are such an ingrained part of Myst's identity. When writing them for Rime, what were some of the challenges to help humanize two objectively evil antagonists? And as a follow-up, how do you feel that epistolaries can contribute to the narrative of a game in an engaging way without feeling like it disturbs the pacing and momentum of the gameplay?
It's a great question. A great
I
two-parter.
thought it was a good
That's
question.
a hidden. That's
Thank
hidden
you.
two. He asked you just one question, but that's two questions. You know.
Well,
we're
he
gonna let
did
it
say
slide.
as a follow-up, he probably wanted me to ask
That's
one.
a two-part question.
That's bending the rules. That's at least a question and a half.
He sent me a bunch of them. This is not.
No, that's
I
okay.
didn't say give me one.
That's fine. It was when we were like we're gonna do Rime. I looked back on the first Rime. So Rime was in Real Mist, the first 3D version of Mist. And I remember buying Real Mist and being so excited to play it because it came with a new age, and Rime was so cool and evocative. The art was incredible. It's this cold age. It's so different from the other places, but there really wasn't much to it mechanically or spatially. There's just not a lot of meat on that bone. And so I remember I was never disappointed, but I was like, oh, I was hoping for a little bit more of a little more juice on this. And so when we got a chance to remake it, I think that was my number one priority. And Claire Hummel, who was the art director at the time, we were kind of like a duo, like a cohort. We were both like, we got to make this kind of feel worth it. Like, what can we add to Rime to make it feel like a nice coda to the story? Because at this point there's no more pages to get. There were blue and red pages, and there's no like. And this is kind of a weakness with Rime right now anyway. It's like there's no real like end. There's never like you did it, congrats. But like what can we do to make it feel like something that really adds value to Myst? And so we settled on the boys, because they in the journals in the Real Mist version he does mention bringing them there and helping them so they were clearly like a family doing a little project together. And I said, the boys don't get a ton of humanization or really any sort of characterization at all because it's a game from the 90s and that really wasn't needed back then. But in the years since then, everyone's, all the other Myst games that have kind of dealt with those adult kind of bad guy characters, we have a better understanding of who they are. But I think that it would be nice to understand them as like to humanize them and understand like who they were as people, because like I don't like one-dimensional villains. I don't think that they are one-dimensional villains. Like how did they get to this point? I thought it was really compelling. And one of the things that is sort of a common it's become kind of a popular headcanon in the Myst community is that Atris was just a bad father. Like he was just kind of an absentee father who was like, I got experiments to do, kids, off you go live your life.
There's a lot of bad dads in fiction.
I totally agree. But I actually argue that Atris is not Atris and Catherine, who's the wife, are not bad parents. I just think that they gave their kids too much of a benefit of the doubt. Like Atris is so very trusting, and his wife is they're both very trusting, and they were like they're kind of teenagers, they're kind of adults. Like we should treat them like adults, and I think that was kind of the issue. I don't think he was just like, I'm not interested in being a father, because that doesn't match the character that I know. Anyway, that's a side story. But we decided we wanted to add some additional puzzles. And add some additional lore to make it feel like a new, exciting thing for fans. And so I settled on the journals of the boys, the Cirrus and Akron journals, and the whole team was like, awesome, like cool. If you want to write them, great. And so everybody was on board with doing that. And to get to the actual question, the meat of the question of like, what are the struggles? Like, I from the very beginning knew that I didn't want to just write them like child versions of the men that we knew. where like, oh, Akinar is a weirdo who likes killing cats, and Cirrus is, you can see that he's going to become an alcoholic later because he has a weird addictive personality. Like that to me just felt like, again, reducing them to sort of comic caricatures of who they were.
A pup named Scooby Doo.
Yeah, like they already are fully formed at like 14,
Yeah.
but they just haven't become like actually evil yet. They're like, oh, they're on their way though.
It's a classic, a pup named Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, a classic evil Scooby-Doo. I hate, we can't pup name Scooby-Doo these guys, I said in a meeting, and everyone nodded sagely, yes, we know what that means. And so, video games are, designing video games is sort of applied behavioral psychology. So like spending a lot of time thinking about people and why they do shit that they do, right? So I said, I think what would be fun is seeing them as children and seeing the positive traits that then go sour and become kind of their negative traits. But I don't want, like, you could see how in a different world they could have continued to aid and like become positive versions of themselves. And so I was just thinking about like Cirrus at 13, Akinar at 16, like who would they be? What have they gone through? I didn't want to make them like these weird traumatized, like ostracized weirdos, because I wanted this to be a like, hey, Atris is showing you his children when they were a family. Like this is the last happy time they spent together. Because there's a little note at the end of Mist, when you go back into the library, and he says, I want you to see my brothers, my sons, because I know you see them as evil people, but I want you to see them the way I saw them for many years, as children, as my sons, as people I loved. And that's the heartbreak of these characters. So I thought about, okay, Cirrus wants desperately to have his father's approval. He's kind of like a little scientist, just like his father. He just desperately wants to make his dad proud, but he's also afraid of looking stupid in front of his dad. So maybe he has a little thing where he has an idea, but is kind of ashamed and doesn't want to tell his dad his idea because he's worried about it. And Akinar, just again, like I was trying to figure out, like, okay, maybe he's more like Catherine, maybe he's more like his mother, and so maybe he's very introspective, he's very empathetic. He can see that Cirrus is going through something, seriously pacing around, and he's like, I guess I got to talk to this kid and tell him how to, like, I can tell he's frustrated. And so that's why Akinar's journal has like more like doodles and drawings. He's very observant. He's much more like artistic-y, kind of to feel, just kind of make their voices a little bit different. But writing children is tough. As far as challenges go, writing teenagers is real tough because you don't want to make them cutesy and give them weird little affectations, but you also need them to sound not like adults. So getting that voice right and getting the texture of that voice is difficult. Because sometimes you read teenagers and you're like, this is just an adult. Like a teenager would never say these things. So that was a challenge. I went through multiple revisions. I had a lot of great editing notes from Claire and a bunch of people who gave fantastic notes on kind of tweaking language or pulling back, like, oh, we should reference Channelwood or whatever. So that is kind of that was kind of the thrust of what I was trying to accomplish with writing those journals, is showing you how, there's a breakthrough where they figure out they need to slice the crystals into lenses, and Cirrus is all stoked and he's really happy. And then at some point he gets injured. He goes out, he sneaks out to go look at whales because his dad's like, you can't go watch the whales at night. So he sneaks out, slips on the ice, cracks his head. And then Akinar's like, fuck, dumbass, I gotta go find him, patch him up, and like, it's our little secret, we won't tell dad. And there's an Atris journal where he says like, well, they're clearly hiding something, but you know what? Like, it's probably good that they're leaning on each other more. So I'm not gonna poke at it. I'm glad that they have secrets that are not for their dad, which is like, you dummy, they're gonna have a lot more secrets in a couple of years. So you can kind of see how these little moments as teenagers, we've all had a moment where we like broke a bone or fell out of a tree, and it like formulated, like it crystallized in a moment, like it freezes that moment in time forever, and your personality shifts permanently because of it. And so I didn't want it to be so dramatic that it was unbelievable, like, oh, this is the thing that makes him evil. But you can see how they started to form a bond where they start to like hide things from their parents. And Akinar says something like, oh, like Cirrus needs to grow up and understand, like, dad's just a guy, like he makes mistakes too. And maybe you can see in the future, in the unwritten part between that, the rhyme and Mist, where like Akinar start telling Cirrus like, dad doesn't know everything. Dad's not that smart. He's, you can skip to see maybe that's where that comes from. So just showing the first step and letting the player sort of interpret maybe what could have happened between Rhyme and them becoming evil, but knowing kind of where to stop that was very challenging.
And then And then how did you feel about like the diaries
Mm.
and the pacing of the game?
Luckily, Mist is real slow. And so
So
what's
not
nice
a
is,
problem.
yeah, you just take as long as you want. Uh, Journal reading is always slow, and I think that I really tried to keep the number of pages low because like in Mist, the very first game, the each of the books for the ages is really long. It's like 20 something pages. It's so long. And that's where a lot of like modern gamers just they get to that and they start clicking how many pages are there, and it just keeps going, and they're like, you know what, I'm good, I don't need to play this game. So I knew I wanted to keep it short-ish. And the trouble is when you're writing a journal for a game like Myst, there is like puzzle clues in there, but you don't want to like underline and bold them so that when you're skipping through, you can just be like, "There's the thing I need." Um, but you don't not want to do that because you want to respect how people play the game, and I think that's one of those things again, like that I've learned over the years is you kind of have to meet gamers where they're at, and by saying that, I don't mean like lower the bar, get all rid of the friction, like just point them at the answer. That's not at all what I mean. But like people come to Mist for a certain experience, so we should kind of like remember that while we're designing it, and just take that into consideration. Not necessarily like pander directly to a specific kind of player, but say, look, there's a lot of text. There's a ton of text, and if you want to learn lore and learn the characters, it's there for you. But if you just want the puzzle solution, that's why the number is circled and it's circled on one side, and the code for the imaging device is on the final page. So when you're spamming through it, you're like, "That's the end. Cool. I see a thing. Screenshot." And so you've got to try and find. And for some people, that's too much direction, and some people that's not enough direction because there's such a breadth of, especially in adventure games, like what's too hard and what's
Yeah.
too easy. So there's no way to get it perfect, you know. And I think I think the puzzle in Rhyme, I put too many steps on it, made it a little bit too complicated for folks. But my goal was to add some actual like zhuzh, some actual meat to the bone of being in Rhyme. I think we over-indexed a little bit, but that's another story for another time. But I do think that because journals, notes are fun and important to Myst, like Myst is a game about books. You know, you kind of know that if you're a Myst fan. I didn't want to make it a 3-page journal, so you have to sort of go, okay, this generally feels about right. I don't feel taxed when I get to reading it. A lot of feedback from the rest of the team, like how did it feel to read this? Did it at the end were you like, Jesus Christ, that took so long? Or did it feel right? Can we trim it down but still keep the core of it there? But you know, there's like a letter to Catherine that's totally optional. You can find or not find, and if you want to read it, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Um, so it's kind of it's a balancing act, and I don't think there's any way to get it perfect. But I think Myst is lucky in that it's a game of fans of Myst games, Cyan games are looking for journals to read, are looking for lore, looking for character, looking for like the rules of the world and all that stuff. So you can get away with it more that the pacing is slower. Um, and I think you just have to be really careful about putting all that stuff too close together when you're talking about pacing. Like the boys' journals are kind of near each other, but they're only like 4 or 5, 6 pages total. Atris's journals are always real wordy, but we kind of push them apart. So there's a lot of exploration you get to do between those. So you get to go up the elevator, you get to play with your Aurora machine, you get to turn the thing around, go, spoilers, go outside in the back, you can see the whales, you can go down to his room. Oh, here's another journal. This is a long one, but and then after that you close that, then you go down even further and you find the crystal room, and there's all sorts of other. So you've just kind of find places to place those things that isn't like, okay, you walk into a room and there's 17 journals to read all in one place. You're like, you're immediately you're like, oh my god, this is becoming homework. So
Yeah.
really keeping and finding other ways to tell that story too. Like, okay, we could write a journal entry here or a note here, but is there a way we can tell it through the environment? Is there a way we can tell the story through the without any words? And so you definitely want to try and trim that stuff down as much as you can. If you're like, okay, this is a room with a lot of journals, we got to cut a bunch of them out of here because it's you walk in here and you see all the journals and you just go,
Oh
you
yeah,
just
I mean,
melt.
especially like late in a game when you hit like, here's the reading section, like right as the momentum's building.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even for those of us who love that kind of narrative, that can, this pacing questions. I think about a genre like adventure games where it's maybe harder than in some genres to control pacing. I mean,
Yeah.
it is very much a move at your own speed sort of genre for a lot of players, and to think about how you even just space out longer bits of lore drops with shorter punchier ones, or telling it, showing not telling opportunities and things like that. is a fascinating way to look at how you might achieve that pacing in a genre that's very much move at your own speed.
Yeah, and again, it's very like opt in. Like you decide how much you want to read. But again, like it's tough when you have puzzle solutions or puzzle clues in there. You've got to really like you kind of have to get them to read it, and so it's a struggle. It is a struggle. I do like you said, like if the game feels like it's ramping up to something big, putting a big hefty journal right before or right after the moment, it can be like, oh, I just want to go. I know I've got the solution in my mind. I want to go plug in the code or whatever. You've got to find those right moments of. And every game has ups and downs and peaks and valleys that you can kind of be like, and this is what we learned on Diablo 2 is like find the valleys to put the story in. Don't put it like, well, I'm trying to fight 100 monsters. I have a guy like, let me tell you the story of my childhood. And you're like, buddy, I'm trying not to die right now. So you've got to like find the right moments to when to deliver story and when to let the game kind of just go. So yeah, I think you nailed it there.
So I haven't played this the recent Myst remake, but I am going to get it because I have a Quest 3 sitting here, so I might as well try it out in the VR. Did that affect like did that factor into any of your thought through? It's like people are going to be peering through reading journal entries with like this thing on their head.
Oh yeah. I can't put it on. I put it on for 90 seconds and I want to die. So I actually was like, if we're gonna test VR stuff, someone else has to do it because I can't do it. They were like, we'll send you a Quest. And you can play the game.
Is it mobile? Like, is it motion sickness?
Motion sickness. Yeah, I'm like super susceptible to
that stinks. That really stinks. I love it so much, but it makes everyone sick.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, like some people can handle it, some people can't. I'm just not one of the people can.
Yeah, but that's how it is.
Yeah, in Riven there was a lot of okay, we got to like bring things up to sort of chest height for people sitting down and using it. And I think that, I remember in Myst, we definitely had to keep in mind sitting VR people that like we can't put things on the ground because they can't put their hand through the ground to touch a button.
Oh yeah, it's
so
very
we had to think about that
stuff.
I think that we had talked about some kind of in headset journal system because it stinks to like take the headset off and like take a note, put the headset back on. But we do have, at least you have the camera, and you can write notes on the camera, like
cool.
And at least in Riven, I think you can. I'm not sure if Myst. Maybe we ported that back to Myst. I'm not sure, but it's definitely one of those things of like, okay, yes, I don't want to have to literally hold my hand in front of my face with the controller and like do this with my hand to like turn pages. There's a lot of pages, so it gets very taxing. So 100% thought about that stuff. Yeah.
And Ben, do be careful if you play it in VR not to get sucked into the world of Myst.
That's the world of reading.
it will become my world. That's the tagline, right? Like it's a surreal adventure.
The surrealistic adventure that will become your world, something like that. Yeah, surrealistic. What a word.
Did the original Myst come with that gateway with King's Quest 6?
It didn't.
It came with my Gateway 2000.
It did it? I remember. Gosh, I don't remember how I was introduced to Myst. I think probably like an older school kid showed it to me, and I didn't own it, and I thought it was super cool and super creepy and kind of scary and eerie.
It was scary when I was a kid and played it. I was scared. It scared me, and I like it was just there's nothing like obviously scary about it. It was just scary.
The vibes are just, it's weird, and you're alone, and there's nothing here, and it's always weird kind of aggressive looking machines all around you. Like we talk about that a lot too when I was at Cyan, is like the vibe of Riven or Myst at least is kind of spooky, the original one. And so I can't remember how I got introduced to Myst, but I remember loving it and playing it. And then at some point I told my friend, oh man, I love that game Myst. I remember I saw the box in like the computer store and looked at the box and read the back a bunch. I didn't own it. And maybe I read the strategy guide, which is what you do when you don't own the game. You just look at the pictures in the strategy guide.
Isn't that amazing? I miss those days.
Okay, so
what a way to learn about video games,
right? And so I remember buying or having or something the Prima guide, which was written in like a story voice, or like it was about a guy who he found himself on Myst and was like, he literally written like journal entries. Like, I came across a weird thing. I flipped it back and forth. Nothing happened. Then I went in the library and read some books. And the clues for the puzzles were sort of like doled out with slow hints of like what he's noticing, and then like more explicit, and then more explicit from there until he just gives you the solution. But I remember reading that and being so enamored with like, oh, it's like reading a storybook version of Myst. And I think there was also one for Riven that did a similar thing. And so what we were talking about before we started recording podcasts is I wrote the strategy guide, the player's guide for Riven, for the new Riven. And I said, they were like, we just need like a guide for playtesters, or not for playtesters, for like for press, when we give the game to the press. But they just need to know, like, because they only have so much time to play the game, there might be parts where they kind of need some help to get through it. Can you just write like a top down, here's the details. And I was like, I would love to. Can I write it like the old Prima guides where it's a story? And they're like, if you want to spend time doing that, go for it. And so the whole Riven companion is written in that format, where it's like a person showing up in Riven, and it's like all done in world and character. It's 2 parts. So there's that. And then if you're like, look, man, I don't have time for the story stuff. Just tell me how to solve the marble puzzle or whatever. There's a second half, which is literally just puzzles, soft hint, medium hint, solution. And so you don't have to spoil yourself. If you just need a little hint, you can just get that. But I was very pleased. I wrote that thing in like 2 weeks. It was like a real fast turnaround. And then Claire Hummel did all the beautiful art and sort of formatting of it. And so I was really happy that we were able to kind of keep the spirit of those old 90s strategy guides alive.
Is that in game, or do you find
no,
that on their website?
It's a separate. It's a PDF. I think you can buy it from the Science Store. I think it's also available on Steam with like the digital art book and stuff. And it's like $10. So you know what? The internet has all that stuff for free, but it's a cool package. And it's a fun little artifact from that game, if that's something that means anything to you. It was really fun to work on.
I do, because I mean, I've talked on here before, but very quickly, when I got a LucasArts compendium when I was a kid that had a bunch of like Secret McAllen and Zach McCracken and so on and so forth, it came with a manual with walkthroughs, but not direct walkthroughs, with narrative walkthroughs. And I've always like enjoyed it. It's like written from the point of view of Guybrush, written from the point of view of Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And so on and
Sierra
so forth.
was doing that with its companion books. Well, I guess those were published by someone else, but they had a King's Quest companion that was split up in a very similar way, where it would have a narrative version of this, of let's tell the story, just talking about the puzzles. And then there's a chapter after that that's like, here's the shortcut with all the, just, this is the puzzle spelled out, and here's some maps and things like that. But I was fascinated by this, what to me, kind of like you said, it was like, this is as close as I'm ever going to get to a novelization of King's Quest 6.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic.
That's
I loved it.
That's so cool.
I kind of like that type of walkthrough, at least the ones I haven't read yours, like, but
It's
great.
It's really good. I did a great job on it. Don't worry.
Right.
That's what I've been hearing.
The word on the street
is great on
this.
this.
Yeah. 100% positive feedback from me specifically.
But what I like about it is also it is like it like those walkthroughs and the LucasArts ones were like just kind of nudges. So like at the end of the day, I was like, I solved this game, but it was just like it kind of was like,
you just need to know where to look, like.
There's go look at the scum bar. Like maybe you should talk to more people and exhaust those dialogue options a little more.
Yeah, it still leaves you the sort of feeling that you solved it.
Now, so Rime came out, as you mentioned, that came out later after the Myst remake. What was like the discussion like to get that started in the first place?
I mean, it was something that they had kind of noodled around with even before I joined the team. And they had a gray box space, and we sort of just went back to it and says, what do we want this to be? This was sort of post Riven's release while we were kind of working on the next thing, but we kind of wanted to make sure the team had something they could really get excited to work on while we were sort of doing like paper design, talking to business people and doing all that kind of stuff. So Rime felt like the right fit because it's something the fans had been asking for so long, because it was like the last piece of content kind of missing from the previous Myst games. And so like I didn't have I was like, thumbs up, I would love to do Rime, I would be stoked to do it, but it wasn't really like up to me. It was certainly like, science, creative leadership and business leadership. They were like, I think this makes sense to do from a financial standpoint and from a staffing standpoint. This is the right time to do it. Like we have the people and we have the time to do it. This is probably the best time we'll ever have to do it. And so they had already, like I said, they'd already been kind of toying around with what Rhyme could look like. So we had a really good, strong starting point to begin the process with. So we just kind of decided like, what's the art style? Claire Hummel did a lot of cool concepts of like, this is maybe what the ice should look like, or this is maybe what the building should look like. How a direct copy do we want it to be? Because Myst remake is pretty much a up-res version of the original Myst. Do we want to do that, or should we make it a little bit more like Riven, where there's some new exciting stuff there? It was just kind of a conversation basically with the entire team, what excited the whole team. So I had my thoughts, I had things I wanted to do, but it was definitely something that we all came together and we all like nodded in agreement, like this is how we should do it.
So cool.
Yeah.
I'm curious, I think at some level, if you'll pardon how corny this question is, I think that
I won't.
Growing up I know, Ben, you have high standards.
Yeah.
And I know I'll hear about this in our post-show notes that you give me. But I think being a Myst mega fan who then gets a chance to work on the series eventually is kind of living like one version of the dream for a lot of gamers.
Oh yeah.
And I'm curious, it sounds like you're absolutely able to keep that love alive once you were working on this as a job. But then I'm also curious, are there any other games that, now that you've conquered that childhood love, that you'd love a crack at now?
It's a great question. To go back a second, like it was 100% a dream come true. There was no like you get there and you're like, oh, this isn't what I thought it would be. Like it was an incredible experience. The Cyan folks were so cool. And I've been friends with them for many years before I joined the team. But it was just an incredible experience. And I feel very lucky that I got to be there for as long as I did. As just one of many incredibly deep, like the Myst fandom is very, very dedicated and very like they love Myst. Like they're sticking around even though we haven't really been able to give them new content in a long time. But they love the game, so I feel very lucky that I got an opportunity to do that. Other franchises I'd like to, it's funny, Diablo was another one. I played a lot of Diablo 2 back in the day. I played a lot of Diablo 3. So getting to work on a Diablo game kind of basically from the beginning. I was the first quest designer that the Diablo team hired from outside the studio. So I got to really like help figure out what quests in the game should look like and help build the pipelines and sort of, figure out what the identity would be and work with everyone. So that was another big one where I was like, this is exactly like, I can't imagine I could go back to 16-year-old Harrison and tell him while he's playing Diablo 2 that like you're going to get to make one of these. So that was another incredible experiences. Gosh, you got me like thinking, like I'm trying to like, what other games growing up would I love to work. There are a lot of games that I liked playing that I don't think I'd be very good at designing. Like I played a ton of like Sonic the Hedgehog. Would I be great at making a Sonic game? Probably not. That's not where my skill set is. I'm more on the story side. I'm at a level.
Slow him down. Put him in a Myst type
perfect
game.
Yeah.
I mean,
got to go fast. Not anymore. Yeah.
Well, it's like
meticulous.
Tales from the Borderlands.
Yep.
You just have to find a story around.
Perfect. Well, so funny.
Everything around him is fast, but he's slow.
It's funny that you say that because there was a free-to-play Sonic visual novel game called The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. A couple of my friends actually worked on for Sonic, for the Sonic team, and they were like, I love VN games, so we're going to make the game where Sonic's dead. Like, you're going to make a game for the Sonic franchise where he's dead. And they did it. The Mad Lads did it, and it was super fun. So, like, there is space in those fandoms for different kinds of experiences. So, trying different mechanics, trying different genres within the fandom, within that sort of style of game, or that sort of like IP I think that's something that's always really exciting. So maybe one day Sonic puzzle game, who knows?
Maybe I can solve this puzzle with speed.
There you go.
What if I ran around in a loop-de-loop and that solved this puzzle?
Yeah, a weight goes up,
Would that, we could solve many of life's problems by running in a loop-de-loop,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot easier than doing what I'm doing.
It couldn't hurt.
Yeah. I'll try it. I'll report back.
Yeah. Well, Jess, do you have any more questions or?
No, that was fantastic. I mean, thank you so much, Harrison.
Absolutely, it's been a real pleasure.
Fascinating.
This was, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time.
It's my pleasure, really. Thank you.
And I'm really excited to see what unnamed project in the future is.
Me too, man.
Yeah,
it would be amazing if it was Sonic the Hedgehog somehow, and just like you're just doing the long tease, and then in a few years, someone will come back and be like,
Sonic
"He actually hinted at this in a 2026 podcast."
That would be incredible. That would be incredible. I wouldn't hold your breath.
Just let out the license.
BioWare did do a Sonic RPG that no one talks about.
Really? I don't know this one.
There was a DS Sonic RPG made by BioWare.
How are the romance options?
Oh, incredible.
Yeah, rich.
Explicit?
Rich.
Oh, filthy.
Like all DS games. Absolutely filthy.
That's stylish.
Yeah. you can also blow, like you could blow.
Yeah. Harrison and I went in the same direction.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to keep it clean in here, guys. Come on.
It's because we both played Phoenix Wright, where it had the mic on, and
you had to blow the dust, the mic, the powder off the thing.
I know you. I got it.
There are also much more embarrassing ones where, like, I can't remember if it was one of the Fire Emblem games or one of them from the era where you had to like blow to like cool the tea from some anime girl, and she has a little blushy, and I'm like, I can't play this on the train, man. I can't let people see what I'm doing. Like, I gotta play some other game. So they've come real close. The DS games have come real close to being a little much, but not all. They haven't gone over the line yet.
Sonic RPG DS. It was called Sonic the Dark Brotherhood.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's my favorite Assassin's Creed game.
My favorite quest line in the Elder Scrolls game.
Oh man. Wow.
Anyway. All right. Well, thank you so much. And if
pleasure.
you, the listener, enjoyed this, rate and review 5 stars, you can send us an email at questquestpodcast@gmail.com, especially if you have any long-term Android games I could play on my commute. That's needed. I'm just gonna keep playing Loop Hero, and I'll probably just go back to Slay the Spire or Balatro.
Yeah,
if I don't have anything
or
else.
A good car aftershave.
Oh, yeah. But oh man, I always forget to prep our guests for this part. Don't worry, Harrison, we'll be fine. Join us next week when we discuss.
What are we talking about next week, Ben? I can't remember.
Oh, yeah, I barely remember myself. Next week we're going to talk about Space Quest 4. Harrison, did you ever play Space Quest 4?
I think I played all this. I think I bought it on GOG at some point and played most of them.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Good enough.